Hello, my friends. Welcome to another live stream with Rachel and Carrie. I am Rachel Archelaus, founder of the Intuitive Art Academy. I'm here with the lovely Carrie Roldan, the business BFF.
That is me, and it is St. Patrick's Day as we're live, so we both have our green on. This is my favorite shirt. Oh, and they both are like kind of statement shirts. My statement is a little bit of I'm kind of a grammar snob. I realize this shirt is condescending just by nature, but I feel really passionately about grammar. So so here it is, my YOU''RE shirt for St. Patrick's Day.
I love it. I keep forgetting it's St. Patrick's Day, even though green is my favorite color, if you don't know. And I do own, most of my clothing is green. Actually, I'm wearing, you can't really see, but they're like forest green leggings today. So fitting in a little bit. Hi, Corinne. Hi, everybody who's here. Hey, Guillaume. Nice to have you here. So today we are talking about how to stay in your power. Oh, it's such a tough one because first you need to know that you have power. I don't have my usual notes today because this is just such a huge topic. But I do have thoughts and I would love for your feedback. Put them in the chat, ask questions if you have them. Thank you, Guillaume. Happy St. Patrick's Day to you too. I was just watching a bit of an interview with Drew Barrymore and Evan Rachel Wood. And apparently she has this documentary out now about advocating for domestic abuse and sexual abuse survivors. And that's not something I would usually watch. I definitely don't go out of my way to see bad news, or go into somebody else's trauma or my own for that matter. But she said something really interesting in this little clip that I watched, which was a quote by Iyanla Vanzant. And if you don't know Iyanla, oh my God, go check her out. She's incredible. Just follow her on Twitter if you're on Twitter, because she has the most beautiful little nuggets all the time. But anyway, the quote from Iyanla is, and this doesn't apply to everyone, but you grew up, you weren't raised. And I think that is the perfect place to start today. And then I'll let Carrie join in, because why is it so commonplace that we give our power away? Why don't we know that we can stand up for ourselves or that our opinions matter, especially if you're a woman? But this is in all genders, right? All of them, not just two, because we're usually modeled this idea of obedience as we're growing up, and we watch our parents go to their jobs and complain about it. We see them talk about the bad friends behind their back. We're modeled this idea that we don't have any power usually. And so why would we think otherwise as adults? Why would we then just automatically snap into trusting ourselves and knowing that our opinions and feelings matter and that we have the right to live a happy life and not a life of obedience? So I just thought that was beautiful. You grew up, you weren't raised. And I figured we'd start there. What do you think, Carrie?
I love how these conversations work and how our lives are just super serendipitous if we keep our eyes open. So I've had, in the past 2 days, I've led 2 separate masterminds, and both of them have kind of been dancing around this topic, actually. We talked about boundaries, and this morning we were talking about procrastination. Oh, my watch thinks I'm riding a bike. This morning we were talking about procrastination, and I kind of asked, well, where do we think this comes from? Now it thinks I'm paused on my ride. And the answer was unworthiness, which led us to, okay, and it led us into some story around why we feel unworthy and exactly what you're talking about. People saying, well, me included, right? Well, my parents were this way. This is what I was modeled. This is how it turned into. This was a business mastermind. So there was a little bit of resistance around my husband won't let me, or my husband won't approve. And I am acutely familiar with that. And anyways, it came down to us all recognizing, yes, there is a reason why we are the way we are. It's not an excuse, right? It's just noticing, and our point of power is in this moment. And so we were also, this was a 90-minute mastermind, so we talked about a lot of topics, but we got to the place of recognizing the power of the phrase "I am willing to," and how we got to the place of saying, "I am willing to behave like the person I hope to become." And that felt incredibly empowering. And as we're talking about, and we had to get to the question, of course, which was, where do we give our power away? But as you were talking this morning, I was just thinking, OMG, how perfect that we get to this place where it's not enough. I don't like that phrase, actually. Once it came out of my mouth, I didn't love it, but I don't know how else to say it in this moment. So it's not enough to like sort of recognize I have power, or I want power, or to say out loud. We were talking about how powerful affirmations can be, and also how if you don't believe them, they have no power at all, right? They actually have the power to like hurt you. And so that's why we added I am willing, right? So if you say, and then Rachel, bring this back, because I just said like 12 things at once. But if you say, I'm a $1 million business owner, and it feels like a lie, then that affirmation isn't really serving you all that much. But if you say, I'm willing to be a $1 million business owner, and then that seems like much more believable. So anyways, point of my whole rant is thank you for this topic. It is definitely timely for me. And, we are more powerful in this moment than who cares about your past? Your future is not real until you make it so. So like in this moment, what can we do to claim our power? And it might start by asking yourself, where am I giving my power away? What came up in our conversation actually was someone said, I have to. I was like, no, don't. And that led us here. So I'll stop, you start, and let us know in the chat. Oh, I see Guillaume's comment.
Yeah. So, I mean, I know for me, I recognize a pivotal moment in my life where I did reclaim my power. And if you've read my book, you've read about it, or even watched my free intuitive art class at intuitiveartclass.com. I was in a really bad spot. I was being gaslit. I was in an emotionally abusive relationship. I thought that marriage meant like you had to stick it out with that person. And at the time, I thought that that's what I wanted. I was just so discombobulated by life, which happens even if you're not in that particular situation. You can believe I have to do this for my boss or I'll get fired. I have to, right? Like you're saying, I have to do this or my husband will think I'm lazy and divorce me. We feel like we're locked in for certain reasons. And intuitive art is really the thing that helped me, because what I needed was my own trust. I felt like I couldn't trust myself. And if we don't know what we want, it's really hard to stay in our power, because we don't know what to erect. What geometry are we living in if we don't know ourselves? So I just dove into intuitive art and tried to figure out what was real. Like where was I emotionally at? How did I really feel? Like I had to use something in front of me that I could look at to see how I felt, because I was so confused by everything. And that's one of the wonderful things about intuitive art, is it's personal to you, right? You have the color meanings, you have the decoding. So, and then once I figured out what I thought, how I felt, I went into, well, what is the truth of my reality? Am I really stuck? What will happen if I leave? What will happen if this happens, right? you can do that yourself for your situation. What happens if I stand up to my parents? What happens if I stand up to my boss? Like what happens if I start my own business? So, finding your footing in your life is really the first step, I think, to claiming your power. Because if you don't think you have power, there's nothing to assert. If you don't trust yourself, then you don't really have anywhere to go. So, finding out who you are and what you believe and what's important to you, I think, is a really good step in knowing all of this. And that's basically what you're doing with these women. It was like, well, what is your truth? What is not the story you have in your head about where you're stuck, but like what actually is real here.
Well, and you said something, and it triggered me to think about. I'm gonna have to take a minute. You guys are gonna watch me process. But it triggered me on that word want. So I know you said, what do you want? You need to know what you want. And I was all good with that. But then I don't remember what you just said that tripped me up, and it made me, but this is where the powerlessness is when you want something, but you don't think you can have it. That feeling of, do you know what you were just talking about that made me, it's okay if you don't.
Not really. I don't know.
It that had to do with your husband and art, and you were just like getting clear. Anyways, doesn't matter. But that really got me, because I think that has been, when I think about moments where I have felt powerless, or where I didn't really recognize, I like intellectually know I am confident, I'm competent, I can do it, and yet like something isn't happening. It's when I want, but I don't believe, right? Like there is a desire, there is a feeling or a thing that I am wanting, and I don't think that I can have it because of someone else, because of like whatever, right? It's too big, it doesn't matter. But that is where I recognize, oh, I'm giving my power away. I mean, I could talk about what is happening in my life right now, and like how I am discovering more of my power. And maybe we can go there, but I actually want to ask you guys in the chat, like, where are you recognizing places where you give your power away? I also give my power away by avoiding. So I learned something about myself money-wise this morning. I told Rachel this book flew off the shelf to me. I've had it for a long time. I read it a long time ago. But for some reason I picked it up again. And this morning I realized that there was something that I wasn't doing with regard to money. And I was not just giving away power. I was like giving away dollars. But it was that recognizing of like, oh, where it was basically a place of avoidance. Like I thought I was paying attention to stuff, but not really. I was sort of putting it on a mental list somewhere. And so that is a place where I was giving away power. I see Jane says she gives away power in relationships. Same. Rachel and I have been there. Yeah, I'll let you comment, Rachel.
Yeah, well, Jane, we feel you, literally. We've both totally been there and still are to varying degrees, I'm sure. Like, I just want to say before we go any further, like, I know there can be a lot of shame in the realization of all of this personally. Like, not that there should be, but just sometimes it's inevitable of like, oh my God, I was doing that for so long. I like, what's wrong with me? Or, you know, I just want to say that we're not promoting that here. Like, there is no shame in seeing yourself and recognizing patterns that maybe you wouldn't choose going forward, but you just did what you could. You did the best that you could do up until this point, and now you'll do better, like Maya Angelou says. So I just want to reiterate that, like, please be really gentle with yourself. Please be really easy on yourself, because your true power has always been there all along. You've always been connected to your higher self. You've always been looked out for. You still are. And now you are receiving the benefit of allowing more of your own energy to come in, to feel bolstered, right? So lean into that. Lean into the hug of your higher self and not the shame of like then again, closing yourself off from that. But if you, shame spiral, it's not the end of the world as well, right? You're perfect. You're great. So anyway, I think all of this, like you're saying, Carrie, the relationship, money, it all comes down to worthiness. Why don't we think we can have what we want? Because we don't feel worthy of it. And we can put as many excuses on that as we want, as many names, as many labels, it's because I'm blah, blah, blah. It's really just worthiness. That's all there is to it, which is a good thing, right? To know, oh, if I work on my worthiness, everything will get better.
Oh my God, I love that. I'm please write that in the chat, you guys. If I work on my worthiness, everything will get better. I mean, just let that sink in for a minute. Like everything, because what do we try and do? Our humanness goes to, I'll make everything better and then I'll be worthy. And so it's such a good reminder. If I work on my worthiness, everything will get better. Now, that doesn't mean that everything we have been talking about in the last few weeks doesn't apply. If I work on my worthiness, I will be much better at upholding my boundaries, right? If I work on my worthiness, I can't remember what we talked about the week before, right? But like, as Rachel and I have been really like integrating more and more of our own worthiness, like there have been some bumps in the road. And what I have found, and I've just been processing this, but what I have found is that opportunities for me to stand firm in my power, so power is an interesting word. I just experienced this. I will tell you, I had the weirdest interaction with a very alpha male. And I was the most powerful person in that scenario. Another alpha male came and joined the conversation, and they had this like sort of yelling struggle, this each trying to prove the other one wrong. And that wasn't very powerful. Like there was not very much power there. Anyways, all that to be said is that like that person showed up in my experience rather unexpectedly and super suddenly, but it was like the weirdest interaction, you guys. But it was a moment of, I was definitely caught off guard. Like, what is happening here? But then quickly, like I was able to shift into kind of, okay, except for who am I in this, right? I'm willing to behave like the person that I hope to become. How does she, because I definitely felt attacked and a little bit on the defensive, but relatively quickly, just going into that, how does future me behave in this situation? Which is really about that checking in, knowing that I am worthy of what I desire. And what I desired in that moment was a calmer, more respectful interaction. I was just able to stand in my truth and my power. And I can't say that the interaction got a ton more respectful, but it did get a lot calmer, and then it dissolved, and now it has resolved. And the bigger issue is this is something that I would have in the past, I think, like obsessed over and worried about and like tried to maybe get other people to see how right I was. And like, that is actually not a powerful stance. And instead it was like, oh, this weird thing happened. Oh, that poor guy, like he's going to have a rough life. And off into the world it went. So, yeah, that, and those, you guys have been hearing about those opportunities have been showing up a lot recently, to where I was even questioning, like, when you think everyone else is the problem, it's you, right? So I was like, what am I doing to like bring all this on? And I realized, oh, I'm up leveled. I'm standing in my power. I am like, my expectation is there will be fewer and fewer of these interactions as I settle into my new, more aligned, more powerful self.
Yeah, well, let's bring that up, because I think a lot of people are afraid to start standing in their power because of the ripple effect that they're assuming will happen in the world, right? And like, yeah, it does happen. It doesn't always happen, but um, I have a couple examples. So I, I years and years and years ago, I thought I cannot be myself in relationship with my partner. I thought it was totally like diametrically opposed. Like I can't be me and continue this relationship. That was in my head for a long time. And so I finally like broke up with him and I like said all the things that I really wanted. And he was like, "Yeah, that's fine. You can have that. Like we can do that." And it was such a huge emotional deal that I was like so stunned by it. Um and it was really, really crazy. And that has played out in my life so many times where I thought like what I wanted was like too big or too weird or too strange or like it wouldn't fit with the world around me. Like even taking on intuitive art. Well, kind of. My coaches at the time all told me intuitive art was a terrible idea. Don't start the Intuitive Art Academy, which is very laughable today. That's why we're here. But basically, no one else knows you. And you can assume that the world will be happy with your decisions. You can assume that. That is a safe assumption. Because if you are happy with your decisions, the world will be because you create the world you live in. On the other hand, if you're making these assertions about yourself and your life and you're standing up for yourself and you feel bad about it and you feel wishy-washy about it and there's like, I'm not sure, then things get a little bit more hairy and you'll probably receive some negative feedback from the world. But the good news is it's really still up to you. Like if you decide this is how it's going to be, this is me, take it or leave it, then the world doesn't really have a choice, do they? They can, they do, they can take you or leave you. I remember what I was going to say was when I started being public with Intimate Alien, I was about to go and house sit for my grandfather for a few months. And he's like a really like, he's a grandpa. What does he know about aliens, right? So he was going to see this all on Facebook and he was going to tell me that I was too irresponsible and too crazy and I was not fit to watch his house. But did that happen? No, it didn't happen. I actually got like no negative feedback when I did that. And the people who were super excited about that let me know instead. So I know it can feel really scary to start being yourself. I didn't put that I was a psychic on my resume for a long time because I thought that's not relevant. Nobody wants to see that. I'm not going to get hired. I've spent my life saying the world doesn't want me, right? But luckily, I had enough go power anyway to still keep showing up as myself and to prove myself wrong, So it's really, really, really up to us. It really, really, really is. And when you are making these leaps in your vibration and you're being more you, there might be a scuffle or two. There might be some weird interactions, but you still get to choose. Oh, okay. I can still be me. This isn't anything against me. This is just the world recalibrating around me. And I might have a niggly thing in there, but if I keep going, the world will catch up.
I love that idea of the world recalibrating around me. I've just been in this like deep discussion with my friend Jamie, who was saying like, she said, I don't believe in luck, but I create my own luck. I'm like, well, then you believe in luck. And she's like, I don't believe that. She's like, I believe in serendipity. So what did she say? I don't believe the universe rearranges itself in my favor. But I totally believe like serendipitous and magical things happen. And I was like, then you believe that the universe is rearranging itself. Anyways, it was super interesting. But what I wanted to share about my own personal experience, because I had a similar relationship thing. And I think that, and I think this is really common among women. well, I don't know about this part of it, but like I had believed in just an old paradigm of how men and women need to behave in a marriage, right? What my role is, what my husband's role was, um, and I loved him, and he loved me, but I hated our marriage. Like I hated the way that it worked. But I thought, but this is what I signed up for. And I also had a belief, a very, very false belief, that if I grow, if I change, if I become someone different than the person that he married, that will cause a huge amount of problems in our marriage, which is ridiculous and silly. And I mean, it felt just like you, Rachel. It was terrifying to think about the consequences. And just like you, Rachel, like I had a moment. I don't know the quote. I try and say this quote all the freaking time. You'd think I would look it up, but I never do. But it's like the idea of the flower blooming, that the pain of remaining a bud. It was more painful to remain a bud than it was to finally bloom. And same, like I had built up some of these conversations, like telling my husband what I wanted or needed with regard to my time, or saying no to things, right? Like reclaiming my power by like saying, nope. Instead of like, he would just like ask a question. He would be like, did you vacuum today? And I would hear it as an accusation, like, or he would say, why didn't you vacuum today? And I would hear it as an insult instead of just a question. Like, well, I'm just busy. I heard it as, you are my, you work for me. You're like, I have this whole thing going on in my head. So anyways, the whole point of this is that was me giving my power away. That was me giving my power away to a outdated story, to my husband, to whatever. But all I had to do was find my own worthiness. And then when he asked, did you vacuum today? And I'd say, no, I didn't get to it. I didn't have time to it. He would just take out the vacuum and do it. Right. It became like a non-issue. So, but it started, I mean, I say it very lightly but it wasn't like, it was a journey to get to a place of really feeling worthy, to be able to be relaxed and trust myself in, I want to say every circumstance, but I know I'm not there yet, right? But in most circumstances, to find peace and relaxation in the moment, to recognize that a question is just a question. If I have a desire, the universe is conspiring in my favor to make that happen. And whoever it is in the world that I think is denying me that, right, that they're symptomatic, them showing up that way, like it's all my perception, and it's symptomatic, like, of my level of resistance to my own freaking worthiness.
That made me feel really warm and cozy inside. Yes. Yes. And one of the things that I've heard in the past, this is not a quote from me, is that luck is when preparation meets opportunity. And I love that because I have gone my own way in life, and that's resulted in me creating things that most people don't create. And all the time I hear, oh, you're so lucky. You're so lucky that you have an online business. You're so lucky that blah, blah, blah. Like, well, yes, and and I prepared for this. I created this. I spent time on this. I did this. So, and that really fits well with the law of attraction, because when we're preparing to have what we want, we get to have it. It comes, right? We're attracting it to us. So, I really love that a lot. So where do we go from here, Carrie? What do you want to talk about, everybody?
Well, you led me. It's funny because I was just thinking, like, gosh, we haven't had a money conversation in like 3 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
And I was, I'd already told you guys I was just rereading this. And one of the things that I think the first time I read this, I kind of like went, yeah, I know. I read this on vacation the first time. So sometimes when you're like, I was like on the beach in Mexico, right? Like I'm not necessarily in implementation mode. I'm in like agreeing with it mode. And one of the things that she says to do is track every penny. And I thought that I did that. Like I very much pay attention to my money. I promise I'm bringing this to worthiness and power and all of it. But what struck me is a quote, and I'm looking for it now, where she talks about just tracking your money. Here's a quote that she's actually quoting in the book. She says, "The person who doesn't know where his next dollar is coming from usually doesn't know where his last dollar went." I really, really love that, right? This idea that like we do have some sort of power over our money, right? We have power. Even if it's like I got a check from my book sales for like $6.97. Like, right? Like that can feel like insignificant, and I can look at it and go like, oh, really? $6 for my book? Or it can be like, I wrote that book how many years ago, and I just got a check for almost $7. Like, rock on. I just remembered another, as we're talking about this, I remembered, oh yeah, I haven't transferred that money, but I got another $15 from something else. I did like, right? But the reason I want to bring it up is because there was a quote I really want to find. Everything of value. Hold on, I'll find it. Where did it go? Okay, Rachel, you comment while I look.
Okay, well, I was just going to say, in case you didn't see it, this is Get Rich Lucky Bitch by Denise Duffield Thomas. I really have been enjoying her podcast. You can listen to that if you'd like little snippets of Denise wisdom. I love how chill she is. And I did take her boot camp many years ago and found it very helpful.
It's so funny. I can't find it now. And it will come up at just the right time. But it's basically, remember that like attracts like. So the more money you realize you have, the more money will start flowing to you. And the importance of this part of the chapter was talking that women tend to avoid. And that was an area where I was avoiding. I was sort of giving power away, even though I didn't know I was doing it. Like I have bookkeeping systems. I have, it's not like I'm not aware of my money. And yet, even in the talking to you guys right now, I'm like, oh, it's a few dollars here, a few dollars there. But what she says was that when we don't acknowledge, gratefully acknowledge, and write down and put it somewhere, like the money that's coming to us, the universe responds, right? It shows us that we're not really grateful for, we're not like, I wish I could remember the quote. But anyways, what it got me realizing is I had written down a money goal, but because I was in a place of not feeling super powerful around it and kind of not knowing where that was coming from and blah, 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 like a whole bunch of money actually did come in like the very next day. But if I hadn't written it down, I wouldn't have realized that we're only halfway through the month and I already surpassed that money goal, right? And that is a powerful realization that I almost missed because some of my money comes from here and that money it didn't come in a traditional way. And while I celebrated it and I was grateful for it and I put it where it like belonged, because I wasn't like tracking it in this way, I almost missed. Holy crap, I am way more abundant than I realize. And guess what? Being able to look at that money thing, and that's what she said. She's like, almost all women, when they do this exercise, they realize that they already have what they think that they want. And, gosh, if that wasn't true, it was totally true for me. So now, instead of feeling like, oh boy, where is all this money going to come from? I'm like, I'm only halfway through the month and I already met my goal. Like, where is all this money going to come from? Like that feels super duper duper powerful. So if I ever find that quote, I will, oh wait, did I just see it? That's why when you're feeling broke, you end up getting unexpected bills in the post or receive a speeding fine. This is talking about, nope, that's not it. Damn it. I'll find it eventually. But there we go.
Yeah, well, I really love that. I mean, we live in an attractive universe. We cannot get around that. What we are focused on, we get. If we're focused on being broke and unhappy, we're going to be more broke and unhappy. And I love that there are techniques in that book to help us feel abundant. And that's why I took her money boot camp many years ago to start feeling abundant, because I was a big avoider and a big overspender. And I was one of those people where it doesn't matter how much money I made, bye-bye, it went away. And sure, like I traded it for things that I loved and experiences that I loved. I wasn't regretful of anything, but I knew there was more that I could have. I knew that I was worthy enough to start planning ahead for the future. And I totally reframed how I thought about saving for retirement. And that's the thing. We will get nudges of curiosity. What if? What would it be like if? And that is there to help us break those limiting beliefs in our head that we don't even know we have. We are believers of ourselves. And when we have a belief that says, it's a lack thought for me to have money and for there to be something in the world that I want and to not buy it, instead of, it's okay that there's going to be lots of things that I want. I don't need to buy everything. I feel really great setting this money aside to grow for my future. Right? So we are believers of ourselves. And when we have these beautiful, like hand down from our higher self, we can take it, even if it's just a curiosity or like, I wonder what it would be like. And we will, be delivered tools like this. For me, it's the Profit First system by Mike Michalowicz or something like that, that I implemented in my business. And I do the same. I have spreadsheets and I plug my numbers in and I have QuickBooks, and like, I look forward to it every month. I'm like, oh my God, is it time to do my books yet? Because I love plugging in the one number and seeing like, oh, this much goes to retirement and this much goes to operating expenses and this much goes to me as my paycheck. And having this system and these boundaries and these buckets, like, it makes me feel so abundant, regardless of what the first number is. Whatever my revenue is, there is enough of it to be chunked up into these different areas. And that makes me feel incredible. And it doesn't matter how much money you make. You can do that too. I used to watch this van lifer named Hobo Ally, and she would sometimes make like $150 a quarter, like $150. And by golly, she had her system and she would chunk that up into different areas, including tithing, because she was religious. So she would give away part of her like very measly sum and live on like bagged beans. You know what I mean? So empowering ourselves to know that we can have everything we want. We can change our thoughts. We can grow, because we're supported. That's, this worthiness thing. Like, you're worthy of having everything you want. And the path to that is being given to you right now, but you just got to listen to it.
Okay, I have a lot. Thank you. One thing you said that is just, it was about our thoughts, right? And I was looking for a quote from early. I was looking for both quotes. I found one of them, but was around what you believe, right? And it was this idea that our brains are just trying to protect us. And so we don't have to believe our brains. We could just start believing the story that we want to believe. But I did find the quote, so I want to read it to you guys. That is, now it doesn't feel like, hope the buildup wasn't too much, guys. But it says, tracking your money is incredibly important if you've been frustrated about not hitting a financial goal. Chances are that you already hit it and didn't even realize. That was me. And I was like, that's not me, until I actually sat down and did this, which makes you seem incredibly ungrateful to the universe. Right? Here I am. Let's pretend. I'll say the number is $100,000 a month. It's not, but maybe I should go there, right? So here I am, asking for $100,000 a month, and the universe is like, girl, I gave that to you. Actually, you already made that this month. And yeah, I'm going to seem ungrateful. And it says, why give you more if you can't even acknowledge what you're getting? Yeah. And then the other thing is, Rachel, this idea that money is power. So, how often have we heard that? Money is power. And what do we always say? Money is energy, right? Money is, but what I want to say is we're talking about feeling into abundance. And when I feel into abundance, I feel powerful. I feel open and relaxed and powerful, which then led me down this idea of like, what does power feel like to you guys? What does it feel like inside of your bodies? And what if money, like, okay, let me sit in that, the idea that, okay, what is, if money is power, how do I align to the energy of power? Inside of our aligned income program, we have a meditation that is aligning to many different energies, and one of them is power. And I remember that the first time I did it, it felt so different in my body than I expected it to feel. I expected power to feel like those two angry men, alpha males, like fighting each other. But when I actually aligned to the energy of power, it didn't feel like that at all. It felt relaxed, and it does feel abundant. I get colors, and I recognized, oh, my power feeling is not red, right? It's not the power suit or the power tie. Like, that's not what it is for me. That it is a deep purple, and for me, there's a whole different feeling to that. Anyways, what I'm getting at is when you're talking about feeling abundant, I thought, gosh, I feel powerful. When I feel abundant, I feel powerful because I can be relaxed in my choices. When I feel abundant, right, I feel like I can do whatever I want. I have abundance of choices. I have power. And at least in the world we live in now, right, the money itself does not have the power, but it gives us the power to do a lot of things. And in this energetic vibration-based universe, I don't think we can, like, I didn't know this conversation about claiming your power and staying in your power was going to lead to abundance. But honestly, they're not really separate, right? Like, here we are. Here we are.
Well, we talk a lot here about the dimensions that we live in, and one of those dimensions is a physical one, but we don't create on the physical level, we create at the energetic level. And so if we feel powerful, if we know we are powerful, then on the outside of us is going to manifest the physical representation of that power, which can definitely be money. So we don't have to manage the outer world. Remember, we manage inner world, and then the outer world becomes. So just another level of this, like, when we talk about this conversation, I think of like, a lot of people start with power is something someone does to you, which doesn't feel good. So why would we want to be powerful, right? Like, there's a whole lot of shit going on in the world because of powerful men, and we don't want to have, we don't want to be like that. And so instead, we're nice and we cower to the outer powers that be. And that's not good either, right? Like, being an overly dominant, assertive person onto another person doesn't feel good. Being a nice person who's cowering under the outside pressure of the world, who thinks about the reactions of other people before they make a decision, bing, 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 right? We don't want to be that, because that doesn't feel good. So knowing your power is really about how could I feel my best in this world? Like, what does it look like for me to feel like truly myself in this world? And there's a lot of layers to go through to get there, right? We don't often have access to that right in that first moment that we ask, because we are still afraid of people. We are still so conditioned by the world that we grew up in. Like, for example, why am I wearing this shirt today? It wasn't really because it's green, because I have tons of green shirts. But I remember when I moved to Utah and I had to get my license here, there is an option on the form of being non-binary. And I am definitely non-binary. Like I've known this since I was in high school. Probably before that, I knew my sexuality was, you know, more open even before high school. But I didn't have the words growing up that we do now, and like there wasn't the acceptance that we have now, and I was the only one that I knew that felt like that. And so instead of me asserting me on this little checkbox at the DMV, I thought, oh, well, does that mean that I'd have to like tell everyone to like call me this? And does that mean like, and it just felt too overwhelming to just put myself first. And I didn't check the little box, I checked F, right? Because that's what I look like. So, and that's okay. What I'm saying is like, there is a lot of layers to you becoming you. And that's like what we're here for. We're here for this weird linear time thing where we get to experience ourselves growing. And, now I have a shirt that says they, them. Now I have it on my Instagram, what my pronouns are. Like, it's okay for things to unfold for you as you are comfortable. But it's also okay to not consider other people's opinions before you do you. So find your own balance, but like keep asking yourself, like, what does me living in my power look like? What does me having a comfortable existence look like? These are really important questions that will help you know who you are and find your power.
Yes. Yes. And more yes. And I have a resource that might be helpful, which I know we've given before. And Rachel, if you're able to type in the chat, go for it. But it's a future self visualization that I have, and it's at carrierolldon.com/future self. And I love that so much because as you do, it is another way to say, okay, higher self me, more evolved me, right? To connect with the energy of the truth of you that is already that thing that you want. That is already, I'm going to yawn, which is always a good thing. But what I love about your story, Rachel, about like you knew you as a very young person, but didn't like have the words for it. And then even when you had the words for it and and it's literally just a checkbox, like your first inclination was like, what does this mean? What do other people think? Like, I just feel like that when you said that, make a decision without considering how other people would feel about it. Like, did that hit everyone else as much as it hit me? Like, oh, I do still have some work to do here. I was feeling all like pretty good about myself and really powerful, but that is what abundance feels like to me. It is one of the things that abundance feels like to me. I always talk about abundance feeling open and relaxed and spacious and like freedom. But that really did hit me like, oh, that is true power, right? And I felt this way. Rachel is approaching, I'm just going to let the cat out of the bag. Sorry, Rachel. Rachel's approaching 40. And I remember that felt so powerful to me. Like hitting 40 was amazing because I had a story that once you're 40, you're like old and over the hill and you've already done anything important in your life. And so like I had so many things that like must happen by the time I was 40, right? Because 40 like sort of signified the end of life, which I know is silly. But anyways, all I'm getting at is there was also a huge amount of freedom and openness in that. Well, I'm 40 now. And I do feel, I don't know much about numbers and stuff like that, but I do feel like 40 is a rite of passage for so many people. And I don't remember why I'm talking about that now, but there was such freedom and openness and relaxation. Maybe that was it. There's so much abundance and a whole lot of self-acceptance that came with me to me when I hit 40. And all of that stuff has to do with power, right? Self-acceptance is worthiness, right? It's loving yourself. And that's where our real power comes from. So I just like how everything we talk about winds up being like the same thing. It's all the same thing. It's a whole bunch of different words to get us back to like, what's the best feeling you can feel right now? There it is.
Yeah. I mean, that's all there is to it. Like, we're spiritual beings having a physical experience. And that means that what's going on around us is very temporary and it's very personal. And that means the stakes are so much lower than we think they are. And we really, really, really do get to do what we want to do. It might feel very difficult or very different than that, but it's really because we've built these cages around ourselves. And it's okay. It's okay. But we can disassemble that. We can look above that. We can look through that and find our way out step by step and get to a point where we accept that we're worthy beings having, able to have what we want. And the path was there all along, and the help was there all along, and the resources were there all along. And we're still going to be overcoming certain things, and that's okay. Like, we're not here for perfection because we already are perfection. So, we are, most of my audience is older than me, which it's been that way all my life. I've always had older friends. Like, the minute my median friend was like less than 65 was like a total milestone in my life to my other, like my spouse, my parents. Like, I just always really resonated with older people. And older people grew up very differently than younger people are growing up right now. They are much more accepting of themselves. They are much more able to stand up to status quo. They have much more of an idea that like people deserve equality. And I mean, Carrie's a parent. She probably could speak to this better than I can, but we have a little bit more to unravel than them because we're making the world a better place for them. And they are bringing in clearer energy than we did. So like, everything's happening perfectly, but like, give yourself a lot of grace. Like, we always talk about this, but go easy on yourself as you are in this process, because not only will that make it easier to get what you want, but it's also just the truth of things. Like, you can have all that you want and still have had the past that you had. It's not opposed.
Yes. That you can have everything you want and have had the, what did Ianla say? You grew up, you weren't raised.
Yeah.
And have grown up the way you grew up.
Mm-hmm.
This has been so good. I hope you guys are finding this helpful. Thank you for your comments, Jane and Corinne and Guillaume. They always help us like just keep on track and know how things are landing. This has been really important for me to have this conversation. So thank you, thank you, thank you. I'm so grateful for this time that we spend. And I know that you guys who are watching it feel it too. Like, I'm going to yawn again. I just think it's so important. It's why Rachel has created the program she's created, right? And why we have aligned income, and is to spend time in this energy, to spend time deliberately raising our vibration, to spend time remembering we are worthy, to spend time knowing we are powerful, creative beings. Like, it's one, I know for me, it is what we started this conversation, I think, talking about like spending some time loving yourself, right? That is a priority. Somewhere in this conversation, there was a phrase that I will have lost, but making how you feel a priority. And yet it's so easy to just get caught up in the day to day. It's so easy to give your power away to busyness or schedule or whatever. And so just being here is super powerful. And also joining us in our programs is even more powerful. So I know Rachel will probably give you links if there are links to be given, but I just want to say that like being deliberate about this stuff makes so much of a difference. So much of a difference.
Yeah, I agree. And I just have to say, doesn't Carrie look like a beach goddess today? Like the hair and the green. You always look great in green. And the
Well, thank you.
lighting. Yeah. Anyway.
Rachel and I both have green eyes, which that is, and we are both, like, I saw that you said she's half Irish. I'm like more than half Irish, I think. My heritage is mostly English and Irish. So today, I don't know what that means in terms of St. Patrick's Day, but every Thursday, my mom and my daughter, they like cook a theme meal. Last week we had Ukrainian food. This week it's Irish food. So there we go.
Well, I'm actually a quarter Irish. My dad is half Irish, and I am a little English and many other things. But yeah, see, you do look amazing, Carrie. I mean, I think you get it, right? Like, you matter. You deserve happiness. So we put a link for intuitiveart.com if you want to check it out. We have a certification. We have a membership. We have lots of things. If you'd like to just support this channel and these live streams, you can join the channel for $2.99 a month and get some extra perks, get some extra cute emojis to use in the chat. But I think we're going to call it a day, guys. Like, this has been I feel like very grounding and like cozy conversation that we've had here today. So I hope that it was helpful to you. And we will see you next week. We love you. And we are approaching Aries season, which is where Carrie and I get to shine even more than normal. So yeah, not only are we both have green eyes, we're INFJs, we're part Irish, but we're also born within a couple days of each other, which is kind of fun. Different year, but same birth.
I know we have to go, but last curiosity question. I know my Chinese New Year thing. I am a fire dragon. Do you know yours?
Water dog.
Water dog. That's awesome. All right. So here we go.
Okay, everybody. Bye for now. We'll see you later. Thanks for coming.